Armed conflict has been with us since the dawn of civilization. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence of armies as far back as 10,000 BC. Military history has always existed on a grand scale, with legendary battles fought on land, sea, and air. From ancient daggers to modern medals of honor, in expert hands, these relics reveal the stories of those who are no longer here to speak for themselves. Join us as we unlock the secrets of Militaria. Today on Militaria, we revisit 6 military artifacts that now live on as cherished and respected family heirlooms. These items, once owned and used by servicemen and women, have been passed down throughout the generations to their current owners. Children, grandchildren, and other family members demonstrate the pride and reverence they have for their ancestors as they share their stories of courage, humanity, and sacrifice.
My name is Cheryl Highmore. I'm a Reading Recovery Teacher Leader with the Halifax Regional Centre for Education, and I'm originally from Dartmouth. Today I have brought my grandfather's medals from World War II.
In 1939, as the world watched the Second World War unfold, the Royal Canadian Navy consisted of only 3,500 personnel across regular and reserve forces, 6 destroyer ships, and 4 minesweepers. Though modest in strength, within a week of war being declared against Germany, the RCN began convoying British-bound ships out of Halifax and into the Battle of the Atlantic, the conflict's most consequential defence campaign. During the war, it grew to the 4th largest naval fleet in the world. For 2,074 days, the Royal Canadian Navy negotiated high seas and German U-boats, an endeavour that would claim the lives of almost 2,000 of its members. Valiantly, the RCN remained resolute against all elements, enemies, and odds, and would close the war, having successfully escorted a staggering 165 million tons of victory-enabling supplies to Allied forces.
Hi Cheryl, welcome to Militaria. What have you brought us today?
Today I've brought my grandfather's medals from World War II.
Fantastic. And could you tell me a little bit about your grandfather?
So my grandfather was a cook in the Navy.
And that's the Royal Canadian Navy, am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Were these medals passed down to you being a granddaughter?
They actually were not. These medals were passed down to my uncle, who is the oldest of 10 children that my grandfather had. His name is also David, so these medals were passed on to him.
What makes this medal set unique? On the bottom edge here along the medal, his name is etched in as Able Seaman Thompson. And so that's a really, that immediately identifies that indeed this is his medal, and indeed he did something extraordinary during the time of war.
That's amazing.
Could you tell us a little bit about your grandfather?
Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of memories myself about him because I was quite young when he passed away. I'm likely connected to that medal. He didn't speak a lot about his experiences in the war. He was, as I said, a cook on a Navy ship, and his ship had downed a German plane, and they fished the pilot out of the ocean. He was refusing to eat. Every time they would bring him food, he would just say poison. And so after several days, my grandfather asked if he could take the food to the pilot himself. And so he did, and again, the German pilot said poison, and so my grandfather ate both sides of the food that he was serving to show him that it wasn't poison. So when they arrived back on land and they were coming off of the ship, the German pilot saw my grandfather standing in the ranks and went over to him and gave him a hug and then gave him one of his German medals, which unfortunately since then has been lost. It did make it back to Canada, but over the years it has been lost.
Cheryl, thank you for joining us today and bringing this wonderful, unique artifact. What is the future of this medal set?
So this set will go back to my uncle once I'm done today, and he'll be able to have some more information about them. So thank you very much.
Thank you again for coming on the show.
My name is Dusan Sudek. I'm a retired family physician, and I live in Halifax, but I was born and partially raised in Europe. I brought 2 pistols They've been in my family for over a century, and they've been on my parents' living room wall for many, many years, and they passed away. Now they're in my living room wall.
Following the Austro-Hungarian Compromise of 1867, which partially reinstated Hungary with the Austrian Empire, the newly formed and politically divided Austro-Hungarian dual monarchies shared three things: their ruler, foreign policy, and military. The 1914 assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, then heir to the Austrian throne, sparked a series of political and military moves by the Austrian Empire, supported by Germany, against Serbia, events which marked the beginning of World War I. The Austro-Hungarian army suffered many defeats, with a notable instance being the Second Battle of Piave in June 1918 between Italian and Austro-Hungarian forces, in which control of the Monte Grappa, a strategic Italian position, was sought but never achieved. The war ended on November 11, 1918, 5 months following the failed seizure of Piave.
Good morning, Doctor. Well, thanks for joining us. I was wondering if you could tell us what it is you've brought in this morning.
Well, these two pistols, they've been in my family for just over a century. My late grandfather brought them from Italy. He was an officer in the Austro-Hungarian army in World War I. As an officer, he was a lieutenant when he started, and he finished the war as a second lieutenant. And as an officer, he needed his commanding officer's permission to get married.
Yeah.
In May 1918, he got finally permission to marry my grandmother. And he came home with this trunk full of items that he collected.
His grandfather fought, being born in Bohemia. He fought in the Austrian-Hungarian army. Much of the war is slowly fought in the Austrian-Italian Alps.
I'm curious about how old are they? Obviously, they're quite old, but there's no marks that I could see. I have no idea who made them, when.
These pistols are cavalry pistols. These were made in Italy at some point in the late 17th, very early 18th century. Okay, so these are quite rare to see on this side of the Atlantic. They're remarkably good shape, and if you gave them a little bit of a clean, you might be able to find underneath like the name of maybe who made them.
So he got married, and meanwhile his unit, the 2nd Battalion of the 21st Regiment, was totally demolished by the Italians at the Second Battle of the Piave. So basically, that leave probably saved his life.
No doubt, no doubt. If you'd ever like to bring these to the museum, we could give them a light cleaning, which would might expose like some maker's marks and who might have made them. I'd be happy to do that for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's
my pleasure.
That's a wonderful offer, and I'll certainly take you up on it.
Well, again, Doctor, thank you so much for bringing these in. I'm just curious, what do you think is the fate of these? These are no doubt stay in the family for another couple of 100 years.
Luckily, my son has an interest in history also. They'll be his, probably long before I die. So they'll be in good hands.
Coming up on Militaria, a proud son shows his father's aviator goggles. Then, Kevin learns of how a religious icon discovered in Flanders became a family treasure.
My name is John Graham. Today I have brought in my father's aviator goggles and his logbook, and I've also brought in a photograph of my father taken when he initially joined the RCAF, I believe in 1939.
Canada's Air Force service history began as part of England's Royal Flying Corps during the First World War. Established in 1920, the Canadian Air Force was renamed the Royal Canadian Air Force by royal decree from King George V in 1924. After being plagued with poor enlistment numbers, the RCAF regrouped in 1939. They deployed a total of 250,000 service members during the Second World War, and, as the fourth largest Allied air force, accounted for 1/3 of Britain's perilous Bomber Command aircrew. With a casualty rate of 44%, it was widely understood that no matter where you were in the world, Bomber Command was always the most dangerous place to be. The constant threat claimed 17,101 lives, but the legacy of Royal Canadian Air Force aircrews was cemented by the Allied victory they helped achieve.
I'd like to welcome John to the set today. This is an interesting collection of items and relates to your father's RCF wartime career.
That's right, yeah. So these are my dad's goggles and his air gunner badge, and also his logbook.
We also have actually the original box that the goggles came in, and we've got a picture of your father there, John. And there's a cleaning kit inside there as well for taking care of your goggles, and it was all part of the equipment. The condition of these goggles is a highlight to the collection.
He joined the RCAF when he was about 17 or perhaps 18, and flew with number 6 group RCAF in England as a air gunner. I asked as a small boy, I said, "Did you ever see an enemy aircraft?" And he said yes. He said there was a twin-engined aircraft, and it was floating around at the edge. And I was like, "Did you shoot at him?" My dad said, "Oh no, we did shoot at him." And I was like, "Did you hit him?" My dad was like, "Oh no, he was miles out of range." And I was like, "Well, why would you shoot at him?" And Dad said, "To let him know that we were awake." He had one crash in Saskatchewan, had an engine failure, and it crashed. He was inside the fuselage, and it landed in a field of wheat, I'm assuming, and all the wheat came flying up into the fuselage and took him, and there were more than one gunner in there. They were all pushed to the back, and they were all jammed in the tail of the aircraft and had to fight their way to try and get out of the aircraft. He's a lucky man, I think, because if he had been aircrew in 1939, and become a gunner, I don't think he would have survived. I did learn some new things about the artifacts, and perhaps about the use, like my father's career, and how the air gunners would coordinate in defending the aircraft. I'm hoping to do some more research. For the artifacts, I guess we're gonna have to think about perhaps donating them, to a museum. Maybe yours, we'll see.
Well, we certainly appreciate a great collection like this at some point down the road, but obviously it tells a story of the Graham family, and again, that's something that you don't see every day, and I guess that's the treasure you get to give on to your daughter and to your family, what they've been part of.
I really enjoyed being here and talking about my dad and about his career and the things he did in the war.
My name is Greg Leger. I live in Dartmouth, but I'm from New Brunswick. I brought in an icon of St. Joseph and the Christ Child that belonged to my grandfather that he found in Flanders in 1918.
Towards the end of 1918, with the Central Powers of Europe beginning to collapse and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany facing an impending revolution, British Allied forces made great advances across the Western Front. As soldiers retook the towns and villages in France and Belgium, they also began to pick up the pieces left in the conflict's wake. War trophies emerged from beneath the ruins and mud, but not all were remnants of the battlefield. Personal mementos and charms of good luck and safekeeping were commonly discovered, separated from their original owners, whether simply by accident or, in many instances, by death. Soldiers returned home with keepsakes of one another, each souvenir carrying an unknown side of a tragic story shared between all who served.
Well, we're here with Greg Leger. I'd like to welcome you to Militaria.
This is an icon, I guess, of St. Joseph and the Christ Child that our grandfather, James Gillespie, found in Flanders in the mud in 1918. He was in Flanders in the war, and he was standing in the mud, and he felt something under his boot. He reached down, picked it out of the mud, cleaned it off, and of course, as a good Roman Catholic, recognized it immediately.
He ends up serving with the 4th Field Company for the 4th Canadian Division
As a sapper.
As a sapper.
So that's because he knew about wiring and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The sapper is literally, in its most basic form, is someone who digs sap trenches, okay? Some sappers are tunnelers, so they do all the military engineering. It also includes bombing and demolition work, trained in using satchel demolition charges and things like that. So he had, at the last part of it, he had a pretty grim experience overseas. So he had given up his idea of becoming a dentist because, again, electricity was the big thing, right? Thomas Edison would be like Bill Gates in those days, right?
Yeah.
So He had a dispensation from the Department of National Defense because he had a trade that was intricate and important to the war effort at home with running the railroads.
The railroads.
So now his cousin had joined the 25th Battalion and was already overseas. And so like a lot of young fellows, there's an enormous personal sort of sense of honor that he felt really guilty about being safe in the shops, knowing his first cousins in the trenches.
Yeah.
And so they asked to leave to go overseas.
Yeah.
And so the Canadian National Railway actually started a program that would hold their jobs. So if you left to go overseas, if you survived the war, they'd backfill your position, but when you came home, your job was waiting for you. With that, though, it's great that you were able to come in and share this story with us and with everyone.
Well,
thanks so much
for
coming.
inviting me, Kevin.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And it was a pleasure to be here and a really interesting experience. I had two grandfathers, both were in the Great War. They were strong community members. I think a lot of that was forged in the war, you know. My generation has had it so easy compared to what they went through. So, you know, I have nothing but admiration and love. It's good to reminisce.
Coming up on Militaria, Gary looks at a nursing sister's identification bracelet. Then Kevin traces the history of General Wolfe's pocket watch from the Plains of Abraham to its current owner.
My name is Belle Hatfield. I am a counselor at the town of Yarmouth. I brought in 2 identification bracelets from my great aunt Rita Ferguson, who was a nursing sister in the First World War.
Providing medical assistance to British expeditionary forces throughout World War I, the Harvard Surgical Unit was responsible for the treatment and rehabilitation of wounded allies. Organised in 1915 in response to growing devastation, its volunteer members came together from Harvard University and Massachusetts General Hospital to operate General Hospital No. 22 of the Royal Army Medical Corps, located in Camier, France. Among its initial contingent were 32 surgeons, 3 dentists, and 75 nurses who acted as the first line of treatment, cleaning wounds, administering pain medication, and offering comfort under the impossible conditions of war. By the time it was demobilized in 1919, the Harvard Surgical Unit, serving in General Hospital No. 22, had cared for more than 150,000 soldiers.
Belle, welcome to Militaria. Could you tell us what you brought in today, please?
Yes, so these are 2 identification bracelets that were in the effects, my family effects, from my great aunt Rita Ferguson, who was a nursing sister in the First World War.
Right, and how did you come to possess them?
Well, she obviously held on to them until the end of her life, and she died in 1957. And then they became part of the family memorabilia. And my sisters and brothers divided the family estate when my aunt Peggy died, and this was part of it. We sifted through a lot of things, trying to sort of piece together what we had found.
And the first one is dated 1917. And then you have the second one, which was dated 1918, and two different units, both her name on them. These aren't identity discs that soldiers would have worn around their neck. These are a piece of jewelry that a lady or a man would have gone and purchased and customized to however they wanted to.
She was in Paris, just spending some time. She went to an opera. She met with my grandfather, who was also in the war. He was serving in the No. 2 Construction Battalion as an officer. And so they met there, and she had the opportunity to join up again for the American Red Cross Near East service in Palestine. And so she traveled from Paris to Egypt and then through to Palestine and spent 5 or 6 months north of Aleppo. Her experiences she documented pictorially, and the museum has that record. In 1917, she really didn't have a lot of agency as a woman. It required her father's permission because at the time she was not married. And so there is a letter on file from her father, Richard Ferguson, granting her the ability to travel. And then after she was over in France, again, 1918, to go to Palestine, leaving, she needed to write home and get permission from her father in order to be accepted in the unit.
Normally, this is where I ask what your plans are for these, but these are already residing at the Yarmouth County Museum. The ties between the Red Cross and the Army and what they did and how they supported the British effort. It's a really unusual aspect of the First World War service of women that needs to be talked about. So once again, thank you so much for bringing this in.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
My name is Yvonne DeYoung, and I'm here with my uncle, Kenneth Stanway. We brought in a family heirloom that was passed down many generations to my uncle. It's a 17th century pocket watch bestowed to his great-great-grandfather, Joseph Frederick Wallet de Bars. It was given to him from Colonel Wolfe's mother, sent from England many years ago.
Midway through the 7 Years' War, General James Wolfe took command of the British Army as it prepared to invade Quebec City. A career soldier from the age of 14, Wolfe was already a successful leader in the British Army, earning high praise for his cutting-edge tactical theories and firing techniques. The confident young officer was exactly what the British needed to overcome French defences in their quest for imperial dominance. On September 13th, 1759, the general and his men initiated a surprise attack on Quebec's Plains of Abraham. Although the battle cost Wolfe his life, the path he carved toward Britain's victory would lead to the surrender of New France and the founding of Canada under British rule.
Could you share with us about what it was like the day when you were young, when you found all these things up in the attic in the house at De Bar Manor?
One day, I went up there and I looked at the box there, and I opened that up and had a red coat in it. He had the sword there. I put the coat on, and I got the sword on, and I was on a horseback going through the town.
A watch like this could weigh or cost up to 100 pounds in 1755 when he has it made. In the 18th century and into the early 19th century, a lot of people that own watches will actually sometimes keep them in these little cabinets. So the watch can be taken out, and at night, sometimes it's kept close by. Now, was this the cabinet that General Wolfe's watch was kept in? I'd say there's a pretty good chance of that. De Bar is originally a member of the 60th Royal Americans. So De Bar, when he goes to Louisbourg, initially he thinks he's going to be serving with his battalion. De Bar catches the eye of General Wolfe very quickly. Once you study General Wolfe and you start to read between the lines of who he is, you can't help but in some ways kind of admire him as a soldier. He is a kind of a bright light and will start a new way of kind of dealing with the Army and how the Army deals with its people. Yes, I can't thank you enough, both of you, for bringing this in. And again, as someone who has worked on archaeology sites where General Wolfe has trudged around at Louisbourg, and this is a very significant thing as part of that storyline and my connection to General Wolfe. So again, many thanks for your coming in and sharing this story with us. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. The association to Colonel Wolfe obviously is amazing. For me, I feel an immense amount of peace inside myself that the story of his great-great-grandfather, to which he's so proud of, finally been told.